Today we're going to be talking about how to express age in Spanish, how to ask about other people's age, using possessive adjectives, which is my, your, his, her, our, your, and their. And then finally we're going to use this presentation to talk about comparisons. To begin, we're going to start with the verb tener, do a quick review of the verb tener, because we use it to talk about what you have. How do we conjugate this verb in Spanish? If you remember from an earlier unit, that is tengo, tienes, tiene, tenemos, tenéis, and tienen. You can see that it is a stem-changing verb, e to ie, in three of the forms, tienes, tiene, tienen, and in irregular yo form, tengo. We already know a few examples of when Spanish uses to have instead of to be. Usually in English we say I am hungry or to be hungry. In Spanish, we know that we say, I have hunger, instead of saying, I am hungry. Instead of saying, I am thirsty, we say, we have thirst in Spanish. And instead of to feel like doing something, we say to have the desire to, or tener ganas de. And then finally, we're going to learn a new one, which of course is tener años, which of course is to have age, or years. So instead of asking how old are you, you need to ask how many years do you have. Two ways to think about it are how many years do you have on this planet? How many rings does a tree have? Where we're talking about age, or years on this planet, being something that you accumulate and that you have. So the question, of course, is ¿Cuántos años tienes? And the answer to that is yo tengo 15 años, where cuántos años tienes literally means how many years, cuántos años, and tienes means do you have, and yo tengo 15 años means I have 15 years, or I am 15 years old. For example, another question you could ask, ¿Cuántos años tiene ella? How old is she, or how many years does she have? 88. ¿Cuántos años tiene él? Tiene 50 años, he has 50 years. ¿Cuántos años tienen ellas? Tienen 28 años. ¿Cuántos años tiene él? It's one of the oldest turtles in the world. Tiene 182 años, or he has 182 years. ¿Cuántos años tengo yo? How many years do I have, or how old am I? You'll never know. Moving on to the preposition de, possessive adjectives, and working with questions. We already know, you've heard me say it a million times, that it's not Pablo's book, it's the book of Pablo, and it's not Maria's friend, it's the friend of Maria, where we have to switch around the order of the sentence to express ownership over books and friends and things like that. There is no such thing as an apostrophe in Spanish, so all of these examples cannot be done. Most importantly, what can't be done is Felipe's familia, or Philip's family. That does not exist in Spanish. Remember, it's not Philip's family, it needs to be the family of Philip. So to fix that, we use the word de. We already know the word de from de donde eres, which is where are you from? I am from Uruguay. In these contexts, the word de means from. However, when we have a sentence like los lápices están encima de las sillas, in this context, the word de means of. The pencils are on top of the chairs. So we're going to work backwards with our uses. If we wanted to say my dad's dad's dad, or my great-grandfather, remember we do not have the apostrophe S in Spanish. We need to say el padre del padre de mi padre, the father of my father. Instead of saying my sister's friend's family's bird, we need to work backward to say the bird of the family of the friend of my sister. El pájaro de la familia de la amiga de mi hermana. It's excessive and lengthy, I know, but you get the point. You have to ultimately work backward with, instead of saying Maria's libro, you need to say el libro de Maria, or the book of Maria. However, in English, there are some times when saying of wouldn't make sense. You would never say the lizard of you, the nephew of me, or the cousins of him. With these, we would say things such as your lizard, my nephew, and his cousins. And those three words, your, my, and his, are examples of possessive adjectives. The possessive adjectives in English, as they would translate from Spanish, are my, your, his, her, our, your, meaning plural like your guys, or you all, and then finally their. In Spanish, they translate to the following: mi, tu, su, nuestro, vuestro, su. A couple of things to notice is that they can all become plural depending on how many things you are possessing. If it is my book, it is mi libro. If it is my books, it is mis libros. And mis, now all of a sudden, agrees with libros. Same thing throughout all of them. Another thing to notice is that nuestro and vuestro, because they end in O, must not only agree in number with the S, but must also agree in gender. For example, nuestro padre and nuestra madre, where nuestro changes to nuestra if the noun is feminine. The last thing to notice is down at the bottom, the word su applies to both singular and plural. This can create a lot of confusion based on context, but it also can create a lot of opportunity to make sure that you know that a lot of times su is an appropriate adjective to use. For example, su padre could mean his father, her father, your father if you were talking to someone formally in the usted form. It could mean their father, or your father as in your guys' father. For example, if I wanted to say your lizard, we would say tu lagarto. You can also notice about the word tu that it does not have an accent. The word tu with an accent means you, as in the subject pronoun. Tu without the accent means your, and that's how we distinguish them is by using an accent. My nephew is mi sobrino. His cousins is sus primos. Notice, the word su agrees with primos. It does not agree with his. Even though he is one person, his cousins are plural, so it needs to agree with primos. Sus primos. Our sister, even though we are multiple people, it is only one sister, and that's why nuestra agrees with hermana. Nuestra hermana. My rabbits, mis conejos. Their dog, su perro. Your plural parents, sus padres. And our siblings, nuestros hermanos. Again, nuestros agrees with hermanos. An example of a popular TV show, Como conocí a vuestra madre, is How I Met Your Mother, because he's telling the story to his two children. This would be an example of how you'd use the vosotros form of the adjective, the possessive adjective, though in the United States or in Latin American countries, this show would be called Como conocí a su madre. The last thing we're going to talk about is how to answer questions, and it's going to seem very basic, but it can be tricky. When someone asks you a question in Spanish, it's important to respond the appropriate way. For example, what are you doing? I am reading. What are they doing? They are reading. Makes sense. However, you would sound plain silly if you answer questions with the wrong subject. Like if I asked you, what is he doing? And you respond, I am eating cookies. Or if I asked you, what are you all eating? And you respond, they are eating grapes. It doesn't match up. That's not what I'm asking. That's not whom I'm asking about. When in doubt, you have to think in English. For example, if I asked a question in the yo form, for example, what am I eating? You need to respond with you, as in you are eating grapes. If I ask in the tu form, what are you eating? You need to respond in the yo form. For example, what are you eating? I am eating grapes. Yo como las uvas. If I ask what is he or she doing, you need to respond he or she. So, where is he or she going? He or she is going to the cafeteria. If I ask, what are you doing, in the formal usted form, just like the tu form, you respond with the yo form. So ask tu or usted, which is basically saying, what are you doing? You respond, I am doing whatever you're doing. Moving on to the plural forms, if I ask, what are we doing? There are a couple ways to answer that. If I said, what are we doing? Today in class, we could respond, we are studying Spanish. You could also say, what are we doing in class? And respond, you all are studying Spanish. And of course, because you can respond you all with ustedes, you could, if you were in Spain, you could use the vosotros form as well. If I ask, what are you all doing in Spain, using the vosotros form, if I say, what are you all doing in class, you would respond, nosotros, we are studying Spanish. If I ask, what are they doing, as in ellos or ellas, you respond with ellos or ellas again, they are studying Spanish. And if I ask, what are you all doing, with the ustedes form, just like the vosotros form, you respond with the nosotros form. What are you all eating? We are eating grapes. So for example, if we wanted to ask the question, lees tú, it's in the tú form, so we know we need to respond with the yo form. Lees tú means, are you reading? Yes, I am reading a lot. Sí, yo leo mucho. So you can see the lees changes to leo in the answer. ¿Estudian ellas? Are they studying? Sí or no, lo siento. No, no estudian nunca. Do they study? No, they never study. No, no estudian nunca. How are we doing? ¿Cómo estamos? Estamos bien. How are we doing? We are doing well. You hear me ask that often when I start class. ¿Qué hacen ustedes? What are you all doing? You need to respond with a nosotros form. We are playing football. Nosotros jugamos al fútbol americano. Are you eating bananas? Come usted bananas? If we ask, are you eating bananas? We need to respond with, yes, I am eating bananas. So the yo form. Sí, yo como muchas. ¿Vendéis galletas? Are you all selling cookies? This would be if we were in Spain. So if we ask, are you all selling cookies? The appropriate answer is yes or no, we are selling cookies. And you can see at the top, sí, nosotros las vendemos. Yes, we sell them. And then finally, ¿cómo se llama él? What is his name? Or what does he call himself? He calls himself Alejandro. Él se llama Alejandro. Moving on to comparatives. We use comparatives in order to compare, of course, usually two people. For example, yo soy más bajo que Derek Rose would be, I am more short than Derek Rose, or I am shorter than Derek Rose. Ustedes son menos perezosos que nosotros. You all are less lazy than us, or lazier. Isabel es menos artística que tú. Isabel is less artistic than you. Vosotras sois más atléticas que yo. You all are more athletic than I, or than me. So if we look at this sentence and broke it down into its formula, we can see that each word is going to be accounted for in English. For example, if we start with tú, that's the subject, and then we have a conjugation of ser. So, yo soy, tú eres, él, ella, usted es, nosotros somos, vosotros sois, ellos, ellas, ustedes son. So we have a subject and a conjugation of ser to say I am, you are, he or she is. Then we need to make our comparison. Whether we're saying we are more or less than, more hardworking or less hardworking, is going to be más or menos, in this case menos. Then finally we need an adjective to compare, saying more hardworking or less hardworking. That adjective needs to agree with the original subject. So you can see tú and trabajador agree in this example, meaning that tú is a boy instead of a girl. If it was a girl, it would have to be trabajadora. And then finally, we need to drop in the word que, which means than in this instance. And then finally, you need to make a different subject to whom you're comparing. For example, altogether, you are less hardworking than her. Altogether is 6 words in English. Altogether is 6 words in Spanish. Adjectives, again, must agree in gender and number to the original subject, or the first subject. However, there are irregulars in the comparatives. Mayor means older. Menor means younger. Mejor means better. And peor means worse. So instead of saying more old, más viejo, we need to say mayor. And at that point, we can start to remove the word más. Instead of saying más joven, or more young, we'd say menor. Comes from the word like minor. Mejor means better, so instead of saying more good, in English we don't even say that, we say better. mejor. So we don't say más bueno, we just say mejor. And more bad or worse is just peor. When you use these words, you do not need to use the words más or menos. So you wouldn't have to say, yo soy más mayor que tú. That would be like more older. Or menos menor que tú, less younger, also means older. Or más mejor means more better. So we do not use más or menos with these three words. When these words are plural, or when the subject is plural and these words need to agree in gender and number, you need to add an es at the end of these words. So, somos mayores que tú, somos menores que tú, somos mejores que tú, somos peores que tú. Because none of these words end in an O, you do not need to make them masculine or feminine. For example, mis tíos son mayores que mi padre. My aunt and uncle are older than my father. Yo soy mejor que tú, I am better than you. Las frutas son peores. Here you can see an es because las frutas is plural. Las frutas son peores que las galletas. Fruit, or the fruits, are worse than the cookies. Mi hermana es menor que yo. My sister is younger than I, or than me. More rules to consider. If we wanted to describe equivalency, instead of saying more or less than, more, shorter, less, shorter, anything like that, we can sometimes express equivalency by saying we are as short or as smart in this instant. In English, we say he is as smart as us. So we have the word as used twice to express equivalency. In Spanish, in order to do this, we need to use the words tan and como. So él es tan inteligente como nosotros. Where both tan and como in this instance mean as. The same rules apply, just use tan and como instead of más or menos in que. So instead of más que, instead of menos que, to express equivalency, you use tan and como. So you have to make sure to partner up the right word. You cannot say tan and tan cómica que or tan or más cómica como. So in this instance, because we see the word tan, we know its friend is como, tan and como. Somos más bonitas que ellos. Más and que go together as friends. Vosotros sois peores que nosotros. Remember, when we have one of those unique four words, older, younger, better, worse, we do not need to use the word más or menos to supplement the que. Let's pretend it's built into the word peor. Shaq es más alto que Barack Obama. Is more tall than Barack Obama. Notice how we say more tall. In English, we can just say taller. That doesn't happen in Spanish. You have to say more tall. Here in the next sentence, we see the word como, so we know its friend is tan. In this one, Marisol corre tanto. Because we see the word tanto, it looks like the word tan. We're going to use the word como as well. Marisol corre tanto como sus padres. We haven't talked about that yet, but it would mean as much as her fathers. Marisol runs as much as her parents. And su madrastra es mayor que su padrastra. Again, because we see the word mayor, we do not need to put the word más or menos in front of it. These are some examples that we did in class. In order to make a comparison that doesn't involve an adjective, you just take it out. For example, if we wanted to say, I like to go to the library more than the gym. Me gusta ir a la biblioteca más que el gimnasio. Me gustan las hamburguesas menos que los tacos. I like hamburgers less than tacos. And just like we saw in the earlier example, te gusta hablar tanto como escuchar? Do you like to talk as much as listen? So again, we're not using adjectives, but we're still making comparisons. When you are comparing numbers, que switches to de. So if you want to say, I have more than 90 years, or I am over 90 years old, you'd say, yo tengo más de 90 años. If you want to say, there are less than 5 chairs in the class, you'd say, hay menos de 5 sillas en la clase. And then one last thing, you can also use nouns instead of adjectives. So if you wanted to express comparisons in terms of nouns, for example, saying, I have more books than you, where books is a noun, you'd say, tengo más libros que tú. or tengo menos libros que tú. But tanto, if you want to say as many books, it needs to agree in gender and in number. So yo tengo tanto dinero como tú. I have as much money as you. Tengo tantos libros como tú. Notice how tantos agrees with libros. Tengo tanta fruta como tú. I have as much fruit as you. And tengo tantas galletas como tú. I have as many cookies as you.